I was home alone. Well, not that that was much of a surprise, given that I've lived on my own ever since I've finished college. Just old enough to know how to take care of myself. Despite the lovely day outside, I did not allow any of the light to peek into my small studio. Blinds and curtains covering every inch of dirty glass. I curled up in the tight space of my wardrobe, clutching the handle with a single hand. It could easily be opened from the outside otherwise. Even if I knew I had no chance, I wanted to fight. I did not want to die, not yet at least. See, I have felt those watchful, piercing eyes on me for a while. 2 hours to be exact. I could feel its presence. Fear quickly growing in my heart. There was no use of calling for help. If one of them decided to prey on you, you were dead. I grew up knowing that the outside was not as safe as the government claimed it to be. Monsters roamed free, invisible to the eye, but very real. There were theories, plenty of papers written about them, but nothing was ever certain. Most of us knew by then, if you were ever spotted by one of them, you were, well, dead. When I was younger, back in elementary school, I had a classmate. Her name? Long forgotten. For she did not live to see her 10th birthday. One morning she came to class looking tired, as if she'd not slept a wink, and told our teacher about the monster under her bed. She never came to class again. Whatever had decided it was her time to go barely gave her the time to say goodbye. Small body found motionless on her bedroom floor, eyes open but lips curled into a soft smile. This was my first encounter with them. And since then, just like everybody else, I lived in fear. We were all destined to die. People around me would wave goodbye one day and just never appear again. Neighbors going missing one by one. They used us as mere playthings, never allowing us a moment of peace. Not one day went without tragedy, and you just never knew when it would be your turn. There were a few that believed that there was only one demon, a soul that was robbed of its innocence hundreds of years ago, now seeking revenge. But some said, and I agreed, that it could not have been the work of just one. There were patterns in the victims. Some seemed to only prey on children, some on men, the others on young women so close to happiness. How could we be so sure about it? The way they hunted was different. I shuddered, remembering my brother's last meal with us. There'd been something strange about him the whole day, but by the evening, he had cracked, pleading me to leave the house, to sleep at a friend's place. My parents, they knew, I think at least. I was still young enough to not notice the signs, the way hands shook and voices whispered, the way my brother that hated me held me close, burying his noise in my messy locks. He said goodbye to me that day, and never see you again. I did not realize until later that he knew. Some said if you survived for a day under its watchful eyes, if you managed to hide for long enough, you could make it. My father once told me that many just like to give those struggling to live their last day a glimmer of hope. I believed him in a way, but I wanted them to be true. I wanted to live more, to see my parents one more time, to hug my mother and tell her how sorry I was about leaving when I knew how broken she still was. I could not stay in the same house where my brother had died, and yet suddenly I wanted to be back, feeling as if I could be safe there, as if my family could protect me one last time. I heard its voice, but I knew it just wasn't in my head. It was real. Yes, but others could rarely hear it. That was what terrified me the most. If I called anyone, a friend, the police, they would not be able to help me. I know where you are, little bird. Playing hide and seek, aren't we? Its voice was familiar, as if I'd heard it before, but I could not be sure. It liked to mess with the mind. I promise you I won't hurt you just yet, it whispered. And that was when it clicked. My brother. My brother I lost years ago. He was standing there only a few feet from me. My hands shook, breaths coming in soft pants, but I struggled to make myself quieter. biting down on a shawl I would have never worn any other time. The lack of air made me dizzy, but I could not allow myself to crumble. My eyes fell on my watch, its light barely visible. Only an hour had passed. Part of me wanted to risk texting my parents. I knew my mother could never forgive herself if she didn't get the chance to say goodbye. But I was too terrified to move. Even if it claimed to already know where I was. To be fair, it was not that difficult to guess, for my room was cramped. My bed too small for me to fit under it. I just want to talk to Sis. I knew that it wasn't my brother. I knew, and yet I just wanted to hug him one last time. I felt as if I never had the chance to say goodbye, and I wished so badly I did. Footsteps, and then my bed creaking. I still shivered, even though it was a little further away from me, as if it decided to wait for me to leave my safe spot. I was frozen in fear, was not even sure how I managed to keep breathing. I could not help but think how I would just be another name in the newspaper the next day. Just another person that was unlucky enough to be chosen by one of those monsters. Was it a curse, or really just bad luck? I wished to know. Hey, just come outside. I won't hurt you. Promise. I knew that it was not my brother, but a demon, one that had taken his form to play with me before it would get tired, or time would run out. But I wanted so badly just to see him one more time. I knew it would kill me to do so, but did I even have a chance of survival? Even if I made a break for it, if I tried to run away, it could follow me. The youngest victim that had ever been hunted by one of these monsters had been 3 years old. She was too small to really understand what was going on and kept pointing out the funny man behind her mother that took care of her that day. The woman grew panicked, worried, but there was not much to do. I knew that if it really wanted to, it could destroy the thin door that kept us apart. But this one seemed to like messing with my mind. I wondered how I would die. I had no chance of attacking, none of running away, and even if I kept hiding there, it knew where I was. So, suddenly I just could not help but wonder what it would do to me. Would it strangle me? Push me out the window? Pain was something that terrified me. I wanted to be swift and painless, but that was rare. Some died in their sleep, bearing only faint signs of its presence. I wanted to ask why. Why it wanted me and not someone else. Why they took my brother from me when he had been so young. As minutes, maybe even hours passed, I grew thirsty, my throat nearly raw. Lightheaded and shaky, I waited, but it said nothing. So finally, I dared to push a few buttons on my phone. Mom, I love you and miss you. With my trembling hands, that's all I managed, tears streaming down my face. And then I heard it move again, its voice coming from much closer. My blood ran cold, but I've accepted my fate. You will join me now, won't you? It was still him, still my brother. And part of me liked the thought of that, of having one last moment to say goodbye to him. So finally, I pushed the door forward, nearly tripping over my own feet. It was really him, or at least something that bore his face. Why him, and why me? I finally gasped out. I wanted to beg for my life, but somehow I knew just how useless that was, and thus I wanted answers. Answers to questions we all asked ourselves, but no one had lived far enough to share them. Even those that claimed to survive meeting it knew very little, which is why they were doubted so much. No particular reason, really. My brother died many years ago, but this version of him looked older, as if he'd grown up. We prey on the weak, the strong too. It doesn't matter to us. That was all it said. One more time, I felt my body tense, ready to run away. For some reason, I refused to call it him in my head. It was not my brother, and I knew. It stared down at me with understanding in its eyes. And then, I was running. Faster than ever in my life. Adrenaline rushed through my veins as one last bit of willingness enveloped my pounding heart. I knew it was following me down the stairs, out into the road.
"Help me!"
I shouted, but no one stopped, as if all those people living in my area suddenly did not even recognize me. It was walking after me, suddenly more a shadow than a human being, bright teeth stretching into a grin. I kept on running, slamming into people left and right, but I didn't dare to stop and apologize. I had to run away. I nearly knocked a few people over as I stormed down the escalator, still crying, still screaming, and shaking, but still invisible. I was there, finally, praying that somehow I had a chance, even if deep down I knew I did not, and waited, watching as the vehicle came closer. It was slow. It always had to slow down in front of its stop, as there were many drunkards fooling around, pushing each other down. But I felt more hope as it came closer, almost if I'd escaped it. What I did not expect was a rush of dizziness, my parched throat screaming for water, and then a push. I saw the headlights. I saw the petrified expression of the driver. I heard all those people scream, children yelling in fright, but never felt the pain. For a moment, I was still conscious. I could feel myself slip away. And there it was, grinning down at me. I never expected to wake up again, but I did. But something about me felt unfamiliar. All I knew was that the little girl that had seen me die, blonde, pigtails, and a cute little grin? Yes, her. She had to die.